Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Hit the bell icon button so that you don't miss out any tutorial.
So by now we know how to find the name of the key that we're in based on the key signature. We know how to find all the notes in that scale once we know the name of it. And we know how to build some chords using it. 7 of them, actually. And then actually, no, more than 7, because we know how to build the 7 chords that are in the diatonic chord progression, and then we can build 7 more that are sevenths. And then I guess that's it for now, but we're going to learn how to do some more later in this class. So let's start with something relatively simple, the circle of fifths. Now you may have seen this before. This is kind of a cliche, right? Like if you've been in like a music classroom before, you've seen this thing called the circle of fifths on the wall, and you're like, yeah, okay, that's neat. But I want to try to convince you here of the value of this thing, particularly if you are a songwriter. I'm going to show you how to use this to get over any mental hurdle you have. In other words, writer's block. If you're stuck, if you're writing a song and you're stuck, go to the circle of fifths. It's a great place to be to give you a whole bunch of new ideas. So first, let's just talk about what this thing is. Simply put, it is all of our keys laid out in a circle of fifth-related keys. In other words, a circle of fifths, right? So we put C at the top, and if we go to the right, it's going to be a fifth higher, so G, right? So if we count up, C, D, E, F, G. That's 5. So that's a fifth higher. So then we're on G. If we count up 5 notes, we get to D, and here's the key of D, right? We count up 5 notes, we get to A, and this is the key of A. We get to E, and that's the key of E, counting up 5 notes around the circle. Now, let's look at, before we go any further, let's look at some of the kind of interesting things that pop up when we do this. What happens is when we go to the right and we go around the circle, we always add 1 accidental, right? 0 accidentals, 1 sharp, 2 sharps, 3 sharps, 4 sharps. That tells us something kind of interesting about how keys are laid out. If we're in the key of C, there are 0 sharps. If we go to the key of G, there is only 1 sharp. That means that the key of G is kind of close to the key of C. There's only 1 note that's different. In C, you would have an F natural, and in G, you would have an F sharp. So these 2 keys are closely related. We call them closely related keys, is the actual term we use. Similarly, G and D are closely related keys. So you can go either direction in this and find a closely related key. Okay, now let's keep going. So we're on E, right? If we go up a fifth of E, we end on B, and that is the key signature for B. Now this particular drawing of the circle of fifths is showing us C flat because at some point, usually at the bottom here, we've got to switch over to flats, right? So typically the very bottom is where we do it. This one is doing it on C flat, and it's going to give us a C sharp down here too. So what that means is, let's jump to here for a minute. F sharp and G flat are the same, right? They're going to have all the same notes, but they're going to be spelled very differently. So at some point, we got to switch over to flats to make this thing work. So this is the key signature for F sharp. This is the key signature for G flat. They're all the same notes, but they're spelled completely differently. But the way they sound will be the same. So we overlap here just so that we can kind of transition to flats going forward. And you'll see a bunch of different ways of drawing the circle of fifths. This one shows the key of C flat down here. It's kind of weird. They don't all do that. Some of them look different. It's okay. They all basically show the same thing. So let's keep going. B, up a fifth, gets us to F sharp or G flat, whatever. Let's go G flat to transition to flats. Up a fifth gets us to D flat, and there's a key signature for D flat. and C sharp if you like. D flat up a fifth is to A flat, up a fifth to E flat, up a fifth to B flat, up a fifth to F, up a fifth from F gets us back to C. So it makes a complete circle. Okay, so let's look again at how our accidentals behave when we go around in that circle. So we add a sharp, we add two sharps. Well, from here to here we add a sharp. From C to D we add another sharp. So we're always adding one sharp, right? Here we're down to 5 sharps. F sharp, 6 sharps. If we stay and do C sharp, we're at 7 sharps. But let's jump back and switch to G flat here. So we're at 6 flats, and now now that we're in flats, we're gonna lose one at every turn. So G flat to D flat, 5 flats, A flat 4, 3, 2, 1, and then back to 0, right? So every neighbor is a closely related key. For example, if you're in the key of B flat and you want to find a closely related key, this is telling you 2 options, F or E flat. Both of them are only one accidental different than B flat, right? So those are closely related keys. Now I'm going to talk about how that factors into songwriting and things in a minute. I want to point out one more thing here. Remember in the previous class when we talked about inversions, right? So what's the inversion, or in other words, what's the opposite of a fifth? It's a fourth, right? A perfect fifth, if inverted, is a perfect fourth, which means we might call this the circle of fourths if we start here and go to the left. C up a fourth is going to be F. Up a fourth is going to be B flat. Up a fourth is going to be E flat. That'll work all the way around. So it's a circle of fourths if you go to the left around it, and a circle of fifths if you go to the right. Okay? Shows us all our key signatures and all our closely related keys. That is the value of the circle of fifths. And that is what it is. Now, let's break to a new video, and I'm going to show you how to use this thing as more than just a wall decoration, but as something that will actually help you to create more interesting music if you are a songwriter. Okay, let's say we're writing a song. Let's write a song in the key of G major. Okay, so we're working on our song. It's in the key of G major. I know all the chords I can use, right? Because I use my diatonic chord progression and it shows me all my possible chords that are in the key of G major, right? So I'm playing around with those chords and I have, something comes into my head and I just think, I just need something different here. None of these chords are working. What else can I do rather than just use all the chords in my diatonic chord progression, right? I gotta have a new idea, something a little different. Something that is gonna sound a little out of place, but not a lot. It's still gonna be a nice sound. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna consult your friendly circle of fifths. You're gonna say, I'm in the key of G. What are my closely related keys? They are C or D. They are one accidental away, right? G has one sharp, C has none, so it's only one accidental away, and D has 2. Let's say we decide to go to D, okay? Now, there's 2 things I could do here. I could do a key change, but we're not really talking about key changes right now. What we're talking about is just borrowing from a closely related key, and you can do this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at all the chords in the key of D and see if any of those will work, right? We're just gonna borrow one from a closely related key. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so here's my diatonic chord progression in the key of G major. Let's review it real quick and look at what my chords are. So these are the chords I've been using in my song, right? G major, that's our 1 chord. Our 2 chord is gonna be an A minor chord. And remember, I know this because I know that pattern of my diatonic chord progression. If you forgot that, review the previous class. It's super duper important. So the pattern is major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. So my third chord is going to be minor, and it's built on a B, so it's going to be a B minor chord. I have a C major, I have a D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and then another G major. So I'm working with these chords, and they're sounding kind of cool, but nothing's really working. You know, like I need something a little out of the box for this thing I'm thinking about doing. So let's look at a closely related key. Let's try D. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write out my diatonic chord progression in D, and I'm going to do it dangerously without adding a key signature, just for fun. So remember, this one has two sharps, and if a key has two sharps, they must be F sharp and C sharp. So all my F sharps and C, all my Fs and Cs are going to be sharp. So E, G, B, no sharp there. F sharp, A, C sharp. G, B, D, no sharps. A, C sharp. E, B, D, F sharp. C sharp, E, G, and D, F sharp, A. Okay, so here is my diatonic chord progression in D. So here it is in G, here it is in D. So let's look at what's different, right? Let's just notate what chords we have here. Okay, so my possible chords are G major, A minor. I'm looking at my G here. I'm just going to write down the names of the chords. B minor. I guess I got to move this box. B minor, C major, D major, E minor, and F sharp diminished. Let's put a space there. And then G major again. I don't need to write that one down because I've already got it. Now let's do it for D major, right? So I have D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor, oops, C sharp diminished, and then D major again. Okay, now let's just put these back to back. And let's reorder them a little bit. Remember, the order isn't going to matter too much. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy these three and put them at the bottom of the list. So now we're lined up with G major, A minor, A major, right? Because this is what I want to do. I want to see what chords are different. So if I want to, remember the scenario here is that I'm in G major and I want to do something just a little bit different, a little bit more colorful. I could throw an A major in, right? That's borrowing from the other key, and that's okay. It is out of key. It is, A major is not in the key of G major, and we're still in the key of G major here, but it will add a little bit of color. Don't be afraid to go out of key. It's going to sound kind of cool. B minor is the same. C major, now remember, C major is one that gets, C is the sharp that's added. So there is no C major or minor in the key of D. It's C sharp, and it's going to be diminished. So that one we'd probably want to avoid, because we always avoid the diminished chord in most kinds of songwriting type applications. D major is going to be the same, E minor is the same, and F sharp was diminished, now minor. That could be a good one to use too, because our F sharp diminished in the key of G we may have avoided because of what I just said. It's a diminished chord. But in the key of D, F sharp minor is a perfectly good chord. So what if we added an F sharp minor into our G major chord, or key? It's totally possible. We could just by borrowing from the key of D major. My favorite one so far here is to grab the 2 chord A major and make it a major 2 chord. So this is called borrowing from related keys. Sometimes we call it modal borrowing. We're not exactly doing modal borrowing quite yet. We'll talk about that shortly. Let's jump to a new video and I'm just gonna write a little song and I'll show you how this can work. So here's a little example I just threw together for us. What I have here is 2 different chord progressions. I'm thinking of this as like a verse and a chorus kind of thing to kind of more of a pop song, but it applies in really all music, this concept of borrowing. So I have a chord progression that's 2 bars long here, and then I've done it twice. So these 2 bars are just a repeat of these 2 bars because I just wanted to get it in your head a little bit better. So let's look at what we've got here. We're in the key of G major. So here's our possible chords here. So we have a 1 chord, G major, right? Here we have a C chord. It's inverted, but that's okay. It's a C major chord, so that's a 4. Here we have an E minor chord. It's also inverted. That's a 6. And then we have a D major chord. That's a 5. And then again, 1, 4, 6, 5. Okay, so 1, 4, 6, 5. Now we go over here. In this little section, what I've added here is an A major chord. So that is not in the key. That is in D, though. So it's in the key of D. It works. So a closely related key I've borrowed from and added this A major chord. Then I go to a D major chord. So back to G major and to the 5. However, that's also in the key of D, so it could be in either. And now again, with a slightly different inversion, but the same chord, A major. And then here I threw in a D7 chord. So this is inverted, but if we want to see it a little more clearer, let's put a D at the bottom. So here's our D7 chord. For that, we need this C natural again, and that's going to push us back to this G. Because remember, we learned last time that 5-7 chord has a pull back to the tonic, which is G in this case. Hopefully, it still feels like tonic. So then I gave us the chord progression one more time and then resolved to G major. Okay, so let's hear this, and then we'll take this sharp off and hear it again as if we stayed in key. Okay, here we go. Okay, so something a little strange happens here, right? There's a little bit of like a what kind of sensation that happens right there because the C sharp is not in the key, right? But we've borrowed it and that's okay. Let's hear what happens when we take that down to a C natural here as well. Okay, so now nothing is out of key. Everything is completely in key. Let's hear what we've got. Right? So to me, it sounds fine that way. It sounds perfectly fine, but sometimes you want something that sounds a little out of the ordinary, right? And that's where this borrowing situation comes into play. Composers have been doing this for centuries. Just borrow from a different key when you need something a little more, just a little bit more colorful in your chord progression than just what we expect with diatonic. And that's how we can use the circle of fifth for writing music. You can't find that chord you're looking for, jump over to the circle of fifth, find your closely related keys, grab one, and then look at your possible keys, your possible chords within that key. See if anything there works, right? This got us two good options by doing this. It got us this A major and it got us this F sharp minor, which I didn't use, but I could have. Let's hear this one more time, back with the C sharps in it.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, do give us a thumbs up and share it. Also check out amazing discounts and offers on our premium courses in the description below.